Michigan Liberation is a statewide network of people and organizations organizing to end the criminalization of Black families and communities of color in Michigan. We envision a state without mass incarceration, mass policing, and punishment. We envision a state with the best public education in the nation, single-payer health care, and thriving Black and brown communities. Here on the Respect the Roots podcast, we will lift up the stories and experiences of those impacted by mass incarceration, collective ties to the criminal legal system, and the frontline efforts to end mass incarceration.
What's up, everybody? This is Miss Marjon, and welcome to another episode of Respect the Roots. Yes, y'all, I'm in the studio today, and my guest I'm going to be bringing on today is Amani Sawari. She's an advocate and a journalist. What's up, Amani? What's up?
Hey, y'all. Hey, Michigan Liberation. Hey, Detroit. Thanks for having me, Marjon.
All right. Before we get started, she's got an amazing T-shirt. My girl's always rocking the baddest T-shirts. All my friends are abolitionists. I love it, y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to talk about how to I gotta cop me one of those. All right. I'm wearing the My Lib outfit on today. At least
classic.
The top. Yeah, yes. Right. But we gonna go right into it. The topic for today is the impact of felony disenfranchisement on civic engagement. That's a mouthful for Amani. But before we get started, tell everybody, I know you're an advocate, I know you're a journalist. Tell us all about yourself.
Of course. Well, first, I just want to thank you for bringing me on, and thank you for Respect the Roots as a platform for highlighting folks like myself all across the state, and I'm sure across the region, that are doing incredible work. My name is Amani Sawari, and I am founder and director of Sawari Media, which publishes a quarterly magazine for incarcerated citizens, and that magazine is all across Michigan, but it goes out to 33 states. So hundreds of prisons receive the magazine. I have quite a few copies here, and I want to shout out Michelle Pearson as well. We featured her in our advocate column. It's called Advice from Your Own Who Made It Home. Also want to shout out Kimberly Woodson and E.B. Jordan. Also, we've been featuring women all year in this column who have returned home, who are succeeding, who are groundbreaking when it comes to transitioning from being incarcerated and being leaders in this civic engagement movement. So thank you.
Thank you, Amani. Now, when we get to talk, it's called Prisonality Magazine.
Yes.
I want you to hold it up and kind of, well, you can do that right now. I want to go ahead and y'all,
most recent issues.
Most recent issue.
So this is the one that just came out for Black August.
Okay. Yeah.
And then this one was in June.
All right. Cool. So we got to make sure. Oh, we're so excited. We're going to dig into that. But let's talk about what is felony disenfranchisement. Let's define that, because a lot of people, that goes in one ear and out the other, over their head and all through the air and the atmosphere.
Like you said, it is a mouthful. Felony disenfranchisement, we can see it in two different ways. So there's de jure and there's de facto disenfranchisement. When it comes to de jure, and I like to think of it in the same way when there was the civil rights movement to end segregation. There was de jure segregation and there was de facto segregation. So when we think about de jure, it lines up with legal policies that are in place to ensure that certain people aren't participating in society. So in Michigan, we've got laws that don't allow and restrict folks from casting their ballot who are currently serving a sentence. That's de jure disenfranchisement. And then when it comes to de facto, that is the act of effectively disenfranchising folks due to confusion, misunderstandings, miscommunications. So folks can be effectively disenfranchised due to just being too afraid to go to the ballot because they have a felony, which is the case in quite a few states. If you have a felony, you can't vote in states like Mississippi. But in Michigan, you can, so long as you're not serving a sentence actively. So there are organizations like the Voter Access for All Coalition, Michigan Liberation, Nation Outside, who do the work of ensuring that folks aren't de facto disenfranchised by educating folks on the fact that if you are out, if you are not serving a sentence, which is the better language because there are folks who are incarcerated pre-trial, pre-conviction, who are eligible.
Right.
But when it comes to all of these misunderstandings and miscommunications and even fear, there are a lot of people who are effectively disenfranchisement due to that de facto status. And so across the United States, there are about 4 million people who are disenfranchised. 2 million of those are due to law, due to legal policies. But the other half
2
of
million.
those, yes, are folks who are effectively disenfranchised because they don't accurately understand how the law might impact them. And that might be because they were incarcerated in one state and now they live in another state.
Right.
So that's disenfranchisement in those two different buckets that I really want to quantify, because if we don't think about both of those aspects, we can leave out millions of people who are effectively disenfranchisement.
Wow. And it's so interesting we're talking about this because we're now in the middle. We've passed the primaries. At least here, in Michigan, we've had various counties had different races, and now we're getting ready for the big race in November.
Yes.
And I think that it's key that we talk about this. This is why I'm so glad to have you on here because, like you said, there's two types, and you're right. And we are constantly, Michigan Liberation, fighting to educate people about their rights. First of all, register to vote, but also
Right.
the right that you can vote.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And with that, let's talk about the impact, like the impact as it deals with the community. Let's dig into that. What
Yeah.
does that mean? How is this? I know you mentioned 2 million people, but let's go even deeper.
Yeah.
Amani.
So in the state of Michigan, we are I will say a bit more fortunate than a lot of states in that it's not so much of a gray area when we're looking at the law and seeing that, okay, if you're serving a sentence, you don't have the right to vote. But if you're not serving a sentence, then you do have the right to vote. However,
Okay, wait, hold on, Amani. Now, you said serving a sentence, so break that down because some people may not even.
Yes, that in itself can get complicated.
Because some people may be like, okay, does that mean parole? Like if I'm on parole? Okay, so when you say serving a sentence.
Serving a sentence in prison, I'll say it like that.
Okay, thanks.
Because there are certain states where part of your sentencing does include probation and parole. In the case of Michigan, if you're on probation and parole, you are eligible to vote. You are eligible to vote, and you can register to vote.
Say that again because somebody missed it.
If you are serving on probation and parole, you are eligible to vote and to register to vote. So make sure you do. And even more so, if you are in a jail facility or even in a prison facility and you're going to be out by the time of the next election, you're eligible to register to vote so that you can be prepared to cast your ballot when you get out.
That's important. I almost want you to say it all over again, but I know we got you. I appreciate it.
Yes, and there were legislative changes that were made this past year that would ensure that folks can register to vote, that have those that paperwork, their registration paperwork in their parole paperwork, so that as soon as they get out, they can have their registration form on them so that they can cast that at their local clerk or township.
Wow. That's amazing. A lot of people don't know that. Okay. Wow. Okay. So with that, oh man, you said a mouthful.
Yes.
We're getting ready for this big election that's coming up. That's key. And we'll just leave it there, But like you said, we're trying to get the awareness out that people, because you do have a certain amount of people who have been released or who are now, we call them returning citizens,
Yes.
let's be clear,
Yes.
or formerly incarcerated individuals that have no clue that what their rights are.
Yeah.
And so it's good to know about that as far as the civil engagement. I apologize because I know you were saying, I was like, wait a minute, serving, a lot of people don't know what that means and everything. So.
And it's important to be very specific, and I apologize for using that language because it's not serving a sentence in that if you're under any sort of corrections surveillance or corrections monitoring or anything like that, if you are not incarcerated for a prison sentence, then you can vote. If you have a felony, then you can vote. If you're on probation, then you can vote. If you're on parole, then you can vote. If you have a misdemeanor in your past, then you can vote. In Michigan, you can vote regardless of your prior conviction status or prior convictions. You've served them in the case that you are now out. You better register to vote. And you better get to the ballot because you can vote and we want you to vote. If you have the ability to go to your township or clerk, you can vote. There you go.
There you go. That's a good point. All right. We are here in the studio with Amani Sawari. She is like fam for the Michigan Liberation Family, advocate, journalist. We just kind of finished talking about, felony disenfranchisement, the different types and everything, de jure and de facto.
Yes.
Yes. Now let's talk about Prisonality Magazine.
Yes. I would love to.
The rest of our time, we've got halfway through, but we got to talk about this. First of all, we got to put it up. Can all of y'all see that? I want to make sure everybody can see the magazine, Prisonality. All right. And so tell us, how did this come about, Amani?
So it's taken a lot of trial and error to get to this point of having this quarterly magazine. Prisonality Magazine started out as a newsletter. And upon graduating so I studied law, economics, and public policy at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
I'm sorry, at the University of Washington. I wanted to go to U of
Go
M.
Michigan and go Washington.
Michigan. I love Michigan.
Hey,
but I am a Husky.
I was flowing with you. I was like, U of M, okay, what up, Doe? Whatever.
UW. Let me not send this to my Huskies, and they're like, hold up. So yes, UW. I was in Seattle, Washington at the time.
I wish I could dump that out, right, and go back over. That's all right.
No worries.
Hey, we be funny. We just be silly.
No worries at all. I love U of M, and one day I hope to go to graduate school there. So hey. I studied, and then when I got out of college, I came back home to Michigan. And at that time, I was recruited by some incarcerated jailhouse lawyers. So for folks who don't know, there are incarcerated citizens who study to become paralegals while they're incarcerated. And they actually get their paralegal certification. And they usually do this in the hopes to work on their own cases. But in the midst of doing that, they do support their peers. So they might help folks with custody battles, with appeals, even divorce proceedings while incarcerated. And so I had a group reach out to me. They were based in South Carolina, and they asked me if I would be willing to support them in their plight for the 2018 National Prison Strike. So they were planning a national demonstration that would allow for incarcerated citizens to amplify a list of 10 demands.
This was in South Carolina, right?
This was in South Carolina.
Wow.
But they also had participation across 17 states, and those states included Michigan and Washington. But they wanted to make sure that more folks on the outside knew. And so I had already started sawarimi.org. That's SAWARIMI.org. It's still up if you want to check out archives when it comes to the National Prison Strike. Those live there, and numbers on participation and everything like that. So I had been publishing pieces about just different things that interested me in social justice. And they had been following me, and they really liked my writing voice and writing style. And they asked if I would be willing to host their strike. And I said I would love to. They asked me this on Twitter, now known as X. But they reached out to me. I said I would love to, and I took on the cause. And that ended up with me recruiting 17 states to participate. Over 350 endorsing organizations, grassroots groups, campaigns that were running for office, businesses, and they, by endorsing this, meant that they would take those demands and post them on their websites, let their staffs know, send them out in their newsletters. And these demands ranged from ending prison slavery, paying incarcerated citizens a living wage, ending truth in sentencing laws, ending mandatory minimums, as well as restoring voting rights. And so restoring voting rights became, and that was the 10th demand, this became the pillar on which the Right to Vote report, the newsletter that came out of that prison strike, and then the later Prisonality Magazine was born. Yes.
And so I'm all mesmerized with this strike.
Yeah.
Where are they now? Where is everything now?
So the National Prison Strike resulted in a couple things. So we saw that there were immediate changes in the costs that people in prison had to pay for phone calls. So people in prison, we all know if we have a loved one on the inside, we have to pay for these 15-minute slots to talk to our loved ones. And the cost of phone calls went down because people in prison chose to boycott talking on the phone. From August 21st to September 9th of 2018, and phone monopolies like Global Tel-Link saw a dip in their profits as a result of that. And so in response to that, they lowered the cost of phone calls. It went down from 25 cents per minute to 15 cents per minute in Texas, just as an example. But phone call costs went down in Michigan as well. I think about 5 cents.
Wow.
So that's huge for someone who is making, $2 a day. That's huge. Or depending on, what the hourly rate is, if we can even call it an hourly rate, in different states. Another thing that we saw are a lot of states taking on this call for the right to vote. And the right to vote didn't just stop at people on probation and parole. It included incarcerated citizens.
Wow.
So in New Mexico, that same year, we saw a bill come out that demanded that incarcerated people get their right to vote back.
Right.
But that year, people on probation and parole didn't have the right to vote in New Mexico. And so as a result of people in prison asking for their voting rights, though they didn't get them that year, people on probation and parole did.
Okay.
And so when we raise the bar for incarcerated citizens, we raise the bar for all of us. When we are willing to take on that mantle of humanizing the folks who are directly impacted by these dehumanizing laws and practices in our criminal legal system, then we are able to see those laws and practices that ripple outside of the prison for people on probation and parole too. We're able to see the impacts of that also pull back. And we don't even realize in some states, oh, wait, people on probation and parole can't vote because they're not voting. And because if we don't experience it directly, for some reason, it doesn't matter. So when we choose to actually take on those causes, we notice, oh, wait, this is impacting us out here, too. And so we saw a lot of that happen. People got their voting rights in New Jersey on probation and parole. People got their voting rights back. In Washington, D.C., people incarcerated got their voting rights back.
Wow.
So incarcerated folks who are citizens of D.C. and on a federal level under that BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, they can now vote while incarcerated. So now we've got four regions or 4 states, and I say regions because we've got Puerto Rico as well, where folks who are incarcerated, in addition to Maine and Vermont, can vote while in prison.
Wow, Amani. I have Amani Sawari here in the studio. She's an advocate, a journalist. What up, Doe? From the D. Yes. And just finished talking about felony disenfranchisement. Now we're getting ready to talk about Prisonality Magazine, her magazine that she started. But, man, just the start of it in the prison, what was it, the strike?
Yes.
Prison strike. Oh, my goodness. We got to talk offline about that because, and the reason I say offline, because I feel like there's so many different things negatively that are going on in the prison system that need to be addressed. Yes. And the fact that there was a strike like that and you saw positive results.
Yes.
That's so important, Amani. But I want to talk about, because we've got about 10 minutes left,
okay,
Prisonality Magazine. And if we got a little bit extra time, we're going to go back to the prison strike.
Okay,
wait.
Yes,
we're going to pivot. But no, Prisonality Magazine, I know you named some key people that we rock with that's in our base, Michelle and Kim and everything. So let's just be real. Let me just go raw and real. It's hard to do anything like a podcast, let alone an actual hard copy magazine.
Yeah.
So tell us, even how often is it coming out? What's the nitty gritty behind the scenes with this?
Prisonality Magazine, like I said in the beginning, it took some trial and error because it can be difficult to circulate publications in the prison, just in itself. Prison operates based on its opacity. So the less access people have to it, the more it can continue to maintain its dehumanizing practices. Right. So when there's anything coming in that humanizes the people, it can be a threat to the carceral system if it's not a true corrections environment. And in many cases, it's not. So there would be times where I would publish things, and this was back in 2017, 2018, when I first started publishing, which was then called the No Shackles newsletter. And you all can find those archives on sawarimedia.press. You
No
can find
Shackles
No
Media.
Shackles. That was my first newsletter. And at that time, I would have photos of different rallies that were happening. I would have quotes from folks who were talking about why this was important to them. I would publish letters during the National Prison Strike. There were, and I'm just touching on this for a second because it ties into the history of prisonality, folks who were in Israeli prisons, Palestinians who were confined to Israeli prisons who participated in the National Prison Strike. So it was international as well.
Wow.
And I would publish their letters and their words in the newsletter in order to encourage readers in the States.
Right.
And that ended up getting flagged in quite a few states, including Texas, Angola, and Louisiana. So once the staff started to see that, oh, there's a reason why everyone is going into the day room and just sitting instead of buying commissary and going to the chow hall, people were being united. And this was one of the goals of George Jackson's work, and his movement is what inspired the National Prison Strike, the Attica prison strike that came out of his assassination in California. His work, as a result of them hearing about his loss, is why folks in Attica came out with their 50 demands. And those 50 demands inspired the 10 demands of the National Prison Strike, which inspired the Right to Vote movement. And so in Prisonality Magazine now, we've got not only the Right to Vote report, which covers the different states that currently have different bills and proposals that impact incarcerated citizens and returning citizens, but we also create different methods for them to engage. So while you don't have voting rights, you are still a constituent. And because you are a constituent, you have legislative representatives. So in this issue particularly, and I'll hand you one.
Yeah, this is the current.
Yep, this is the most recent issue.
Y'all, I'm looking here.
The August issue here. You'll see there are 4 pages dedicated to just following the Right to Vote report on page 13.
Yeah, let me, as you know, as the older people say, let me put my lookers on here.
Yes, we got to
readers
see
on.
in
We gotta
good
put the readers.
detail.
Yes, okay, so yes. Wow, and it's so nicely put together. Look,
Thank you.
So,
shout out to my brother Shantan. That's my brother in the struggle. He's on the first page there. Under the editor's note, there's a picture of us at Alger Maximum Prison.
wow, he's the chief editor. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, wow.
And so in here, we've got a chart with all of the different legislators,
I'm looking now.
the senators that have jurisdiction over the prisons that this publication goes to. So we want to ensure that if you're reading in Alabama, you know who your senator is.
Right.
And not only do you know who they are, but you know what committees they're on. And you have a address to write them directly.
Right, write your senator. I
Yes,
see this. Yeah,
yes.
all it's categorized by the states
Yes.
and the committees that
Yes.
they fall under, you know, and so forth. This is heavy.
So we want to equip our readers to not only understand that they're constituents, but how to activate your power as a constituent. And the representative should be writing them back. So if they don't get a letter back from their rep by the time the next Prisonality is coming out, we want them to let us know. We have a feedback form as well.
Right.
We want them to let us know so that
Right.
we can reach out and say, hey, you had a constituent reach out to you out of Marquette Branch Prison in Michigan. Why haven't you written them back yet?
Right.
Or have you written them back yet? Because they haven't received your correspondence, and there may be an issue with the mailing room at Marquette Branch Prison.
Okay. Wow. And Amani, kudos to this, because I know it takes a lot of time and effort and a team to put this together.
Yes.
This comes out it's a monthly publication.
This one's quarterly.
Quarterly. Okay.
Yes.
So this is quarterly. So it comes out every quarter at the end of each quarter, right? Would you
Yes,
say?
yes.
So this is why this is March. Okay.
Yep, every
And
3 months.
Every 3 months. And is there a cost to, if like people,
There is no cost. No cost for incarcerated citizens. You just have to write me. And you can actually, on the feedback form, if you have a loved one who receives one, they often tear this off and give it to someone else. They can get it in the copier, tear it off, give it to someone else.
at the bottom?
Yes.
Right here, the feed.
And they can sign up right there. Not only can they sign up to receive one, they can let us know that they'd like to subscribe, that they're interested in participating as a contributor. So we have folks that write poetry.
Kind of go in right here.
Thank
If you can
you.
see there's the feedback form, everybody. This is what Amani's talking about. If they cut this off and fill it out, they can get a copy of this.
Yep, at no cost.
At no cost.
Yep, at no cost to them.
Wow. Amani, I'm blown away because, like I said, I know even when I do a lot of digital work, it's time consuming.
Yes.
It costs money.
It does.
Even though it's online, because the more money you have, the more you can pump into, boosting, everything. But with this, do you have sponsorship? Do you have
Yes, and on the last page, that inner back cover, we have a few of our funders listed there. And our funders do include Be Bold Media, Black Voters Matter, and Worth Rises also sponsored this issue.
Oh.
Worth Rises actually has a campaign. Yes, they're in prison slavery campaign. They want to take prison slavery out of the 13th Amendment. And so we partnered with them in order to publish, and this is on page 9. They're in the exception campaign, and to let folks know that there is a wider movement that's going on when it comes to really taking out that policy piece that all of these dehumanizing actions hook onto when it comes to folks not being paid a living wage, when it comes to folks not even having a window in their living arrangement, their unit, their cell, when it comes to folks not being able to spend time with their loved ones because they're exported hours and hours and hours away. All of that is hooked into the fact that the 13th Amendment has created an exception for slavery.
Right.
And so when we take that exception out, now we actually have some grounding on, hey, these are slave conditions. This is unconstitutional.
Yes. Wow, Amani. We've got a minute left, and I know we're getting ready. This is our first episode, talking about felony disenfranchisement, but I would love in the second part when we interview, talk a little bit more about prisonality as well as some other topics.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so we are getting ready to head out. Well, for a minute, take a break, take a pause for the calls, everybody.
Yes.
Definitely, we're going to be putting on our social media about Prisonality Magazine so we can, because we're connected with so many different groups, as you know, Amani, and Facebook groups, as well as groups here in the city or Metro Detroit area. And we want to make sure that we get this out because there's so much more we want to tap into.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amani, for coming today. Stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to be talking about reforming the vote.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I appreciate your support.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Amani, well, at every episode, I got to teach you. We always say respect the roots, all right? So everybody, you already know if you've watched our episodes, you got to remember to what?
Respect the roots.
All right, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to put the camera on you, Amani. Go ahead.
Respect the roots.
Yes, all right, y'all. Till next time. Michigan Liberation Education Fund, C3, conducts grassroots organizing, leadership development, and civic engagement activities. Michigan Liberation C4 and Michigan Liberation Action Fund, IE, are sister organizations.